Ezra was praying and admitting to God that his people had sinned. He was weeping and throwing himself down in front of the house of God. Then a large crowd of Israelites gathered around him. Men, women, and children were there. They too wept bitterly. Shechaniah spoke to Ezra. Shechaniah was the son of Jehiel. He belonged to the family line of Elam. Shechaniah said, "We haven't been faithful to our God. We've married women from the nations around us. In spite of that, there is still hope for Israel. So let's make a covenant in front of our God. Let's promise to send away all these women and their children. That's what you have advised us to do. Those who respect our God's command have given us the same advice. We want to do what the law says. Get up, Ezra. This matter is in your hands. Do what you need to. We will be behind you all the way. Be brave and do it." So Ezra got up. He made the leading priests and Levites and all the Israelites make a promise. He made them promise they would do what Shechaniah had suggested, and they made that promise. Then Ezra left the house of God. He went to Jehohanan's room. Jehohanan was the son of Eliashib. While Ezra was there, he didn't eat any food. He didn't drink any water. That's because he was filled with sadness. He mourned because the people weren't faithful to the Lord's commands. Those people were the ones who had returned from the land of Babylon. Then an announcement was sent all through Judah and Jerusalem. All the people who had returned were told to gather together in Jerusalem. They were supposed to come there before 3 days had passed. If they didn't, they would lose all their property. They would also be removed from the community of those who had returned. That's what the officials and elders had decided. Before the 3 days were over, all the men of Judah and Benjamin had gathered together in Jerusalem. It was the 20th day of the 9th month. They were sitting in the open area in front of the house of God. They were very upset by what they knew would happen, and they were upset because it was raining. Then Ezra the priest stood up. He said, "You haven't been faithful to the Lord. You have married women from the other lands, so you have added to Israel's guilt. Now honor the Lord, the God of your people. Then do what he wants you to do. Separate yourselves from the nations around you. Send away your wives from other lands." The whole community answered with a loud voice. They said, "You are right. We must do as you say. But there are a lot of people here, and it's the rainy season, so we can't stand outside. Besides, this matter can't be taken care of in just a day or two. That's because we have sinned terribly by what we've done. Our officials can act for the whole community. Have everyone in our towns who has married a woman from another land come at a certain time. Tell them to come together with the elders and judges of each town. Then our God will no longer be angry with us concerning this whole matter." Only a few men opposed that. They included Jonathan and Josiah. Meshullam and Shabbathai the Levite joined them. Jonathan was the son of Asahel. Josiah was the son of Tikvah. So those who had returned did what had been suggested. Ezra the priest chose some family leaders. There was one from each family group. All of them were chosen by name. They sat down to check out each case. They started on the first day of the 10th month. By the first day of the first month, they were finished. They had handled all the cases of the men who had married women from other lands. Among the family lines of the priest, here are the men who had married women from other lands. Messiah, Eleazar, Jarib, and Gedaliah came from the family line of Joshua and his brothers. Joshua was the son of Jozadak. All of them made a firm promise to send their wives away. Each of these men brought a ram from his flock as a guilt offering. Hanani and Zebediah came from the family line of Immer. Messiah and Elijah came from the family line of Harim. So did Shemaiah, Jehiel, and Uzziah. Elionai, Messiah, and Ishmael came from the family line of Pasha. So did Nathanael, Jozabad, and Elasah. Among the Levites, here are the men who had married women from other lands. They were Jozabad, Shammai, and Kaliah. There were also Petahiah, Judah, and Eleazar. Kaliah's other name was Kalita. Eliashib came from the musicians. Shalom, Telem, and Uri came from the men who guarded the temple gates. Among the other Israelites, here are the men who had married women from other lands. Remiah, Isaiah, Malchijah, and Mijamin came from the family line of Parosh. So did Eleazar, Malchijah, and Benaiah. Mattaniah, Zechariah, and Jehiel came from the family line of Elam. So did Abdi, Jeremoth, and Elijah. Hiliunai, Eliashib, and Mattaniah came from the family line of Zatu. So did Jeremoth, Zabad, and Aziza. Jehohanan, Hananiah, Zabai, and Asbai came from the family line of Bubai. Meshullam, Malach, and Adiah came from the family line of Bani. So did Jashub, Shael, and Jeremoth. Adnah, Kelal, Benaiah, and Messiah came from the family line of Perth Moab. So did Mattaniah, Bezalel, Benui, and Manasseh. Eleazar, Ishijah, Malchijah, Shemaiah, and Shimeon came from the family line of Haram. So did Benjamin, Malach, and Shemariah. Mattanai, Matata, Zabad, and Eliphelet came from the family line of Hashem. So did Jeremiah, Manasseh, and Shimei. Madai, Amram, and Ual came from the family line of Bani. So did Benaiah, Bediah, Kaluhai, Benaiah, Merimith, Eliashib, Mattaniah, Mattanai, and Jasu. Shimei came from the family line of Benui. So did Shelemiah, Nathan, Adiah, Machnadabai, Shoshai, Shirai, Azrael, Shelemiah, Shemariah, Shalom, Amariah, and Joseph. Jael, Mattatiah, Zabad, and Zabina came from the family line of Nebo. So did Judai, Joel, and Benaiah. All these men had married women from other lands. Some of them had even had children by those wives.